Howdy, this is Dr. Anna Maria Helt with Osada Natural Health and Gurley in the background. Sorry, there's no Milo today. He's not here at the moment. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about aromatherapy today because I have an upcoming class online on September 11th that gets into the topic. So what I wanted to blab about right now is the ultimate in nerdiness around essential oils and aromatherapy. And it's really less around aromatherapy for us, which is how we usually think about plant aromatics and essential oils, and more about what these chemicals do for the plants and the fungi that make them. So aromatherapy for plants and mushrooms. So technically speaking, when we talk about essential oils, what we're talking about are, God, it never seems like I'm looking at my camera here. I'm such a technical moron. What we're talking about with essential oils are aromatic, meaning smelly compounds that plants and fungi actually make once they've been purified and put into a bottle. That's an essential oil. It is a volatile aromatic compound that has been isolated via distillation or pressing or carbon dioxide extraction, other methods, and stuck in a little brown bottle. That's an essential oil. Technically, these things are under the bigger category of volatile organic compounds when they're found in a plant, when they're found in a fungus, as an example. Volatile means a chemical that at room temperature will evaporate, so it doesn't require heating beyond ambient temperature for it to evaporate and for us to be able to detect it with our noses, or for other organisms to be able to detect it with the equivalent of their noses. Organic simply means that the compound is carbon-based. So when we're talking about these things in the world of essential oils and aromatherapy, you may be familiar with terms such as terpenes or terpenoids, which many of the components of an essential oil, as it were, consists of. There's smaller terpenes like monoterpenes that are very common in aromatherapy and essential oils. There are sesquiterpenes, which are bigger terpenes, a little slower to evaporate. There are things called diterpenes, which may or may not contribute to the scent of what we're smelling. Some of them will evaporate, some of them are too large to evaporate. There are fancy chemicals known as phenylpropanes that can be essential oil constituents. So to be clear, essential oils, the stuff we're sniffing in those bottles, can contain anywhere from 2 to hundreds of different compounds that contribute to the scent. Anyway, what do these smelly things do for organisms other than us? We'll focus specifically on plants and fungi. Many other living things are influenced by these things. But in terms of plants and fungi, I like to call that mushroomatherapy, by the way. These molecules, these essential oils as they're commonly known, or volatile organic compounds, can be involved in reproduction. For instance, they may lure in pollinators, or in the case of mushrooms, spore distributors. For example, octanol is one of the most predominant aromatic compounds that mushrooms produce. And octanol lures in mosquitoes, for example. Be aware that we actually make octanol we have it on our skin as well, and many plants make it. So it might lure in certain insects, or perhaps repel certain insects. Volatile organic compounds, or what are commonly known as essential oils, are also commonly involved in sporulation when we're talking about fungi. Octanol is another big one in that, and its derivatives, but are also involved in plant reproduction. As I said, luring in a pollinator that can spread that plant's pollen around for it to reproduce. Another function that these things serve for plants and fungi is development, so signaling cues as that plant is growing, or as that fungus is growing either beneath the ground or shooting up a fruiting body, what we commonly think of as mushrooms. So development. Another important function for these molecules that doesn't really have anything to do with us as people is competition or self-promotion or the promotion of one's offspring. And so, for instance, these molecules might stimulate the germination of surrounding plant seeds, some plants' offspring there, or might actually inhibit the germination of surrounding plant seeds, kind of as a competitive advantage to that plant or to that fungus. And so another important function of what we think of as essential oils is communication. And much of what I'm talking about already has been around communication, but communication. So there's this concept of semiochemicals, which are these small volatile compounds that can actually deliver relatively long distance messages through air pockets in the soil, both to the same species that emitted that semiochemical, but also to other species as well, bringing various messages. For instance, maybe the warning of there being a predator nearby, like, hey, make some defensive compounds, there's somebody eating us. That could be signaled through the soil. Communication can also mean, as I've already talked about, luring a pollinator or a spore distributor. That's communication across species. And then I just alluded to this, defense is another important aspect or function of these volatile compounds, essential oils for us. So, for instance, these compounds, some of them might discourage grazing or eating by insects or animals, people included. And in terms of this longer distance communication, if a plant on the edge of, let's say, a forest, a tree, let's say a tree, on the edge of the forest, something's eating its leaves, it might produce volatile compounds underground telling nearby trees to start making defensive compounds. Or it might produce volatile chemicals in its leaf itself, not communicating through the soil, but commonly communicating through the air to tell nearby plants, hey, I'm getting eaten. Y'all might want to produce some of your nasty tasting defensive compounds so that you don't get eaten as well. So communication with what we think of as essential oils, these volatile compounds, can happen above ground in the air and underground. Another defensive function of these things is against infection. And so part of the popularity of using essential oils in terms of people is for their antimicrobial properties. And so they also serve this function within a plant or within, say, a mushroom. Antibacterial functions, antifungal functions, antiviral functions. And you might be like, well, why would a mushroom make an antifungal stinky compound? Because the actual organism, that is the fungus that sends up the mushroom to reproduce with, doesn't want that mushroom to get predated upon by other molds, other types of fungi. So defense. Anyway, I just thought I would nerd out because aromatherapy is such a popular thing and a popular topic, to shift the focus away from what these really interesting chemicals are doing for us to what they're actually doing for the beings that make them. So thanks for tuning in, and congratulations if you made it through this whole thing. It is a bit of a side topic when it comes to essential oils. But anyway, upcoming class, September 11th, 2021. It will be online. You can check it out at my website, which is listed in the notes below. And be well, everybody. Happy sniffing.